Hello and welcome back to TRTV News. We have the Section 31 TV show, some Star Trek Discovery bits and bobs, including a return of a character, as well as remembering DC Fontana. Let's engage. Alright gang, welcome back. As you heard in the intro, we got some stuff that we need to talk about today. It's so good to have you guys back for another edition of TRTV News. And as you heard in the intro, we're going to be talking about a couple different things today, among which is, of course, DC Fontana that we'll talk about her towards the end of this news segment episode thing. I've heard a little bit of feedback regarding the first episode of TRTV News, and pretty much positive. So thank you guys for listening to the first news episode. We're going to be putting out a regular episode here very soon to keep going with typical podcast. We might be doing a little bit of tweaking in terms of the format to this show as well as the main show. So just bear with us as we kind of go on our shakedown cruise, so to speak, with all this stuff. So again, thank you guys for listening to the show. Now let's talk Star Trek Section 31. There has been some news that just recently dropped regarding Section 31 as a spin-off series. Now, this may come as no surprise to some of you that have been maybe listening and kind of following developments as it relates to Star Trek Discovery and other spin-offs that might be coming. Michelle Yeoh, who we know is an actress, a foreign actress, been in a variety of films, one of which, one of the more popular ones, I'm pretty sure, is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon from, I think that was the late 90s, early 2000s, has played a captain in Star Trek Discovery Season 1, and she also plays another character from the Mirror Universe. Same name, different titles, of course. And Michelle Yeoh, when she first joined the show, and she was, they were going through everything after like the stuff that took place in season 1. So this is spoiler right here for anyone that's not seen Star Trek Discovery. So this is your spoiler. Leave now if you don't want to hear it. Her character, Captain Georgiou, is killed in the very first episode, and it's much later on that we meet Empress Georgiou from the Mirror Universe. Mirror Universe is something that we hear a lot about in Star Trek, but we don't, and we see it, we hear about it. We also see and hear something called Section 31, which is a product of Star Trek Deep Space Nine towards the middle to end of the series. As a result, Alex Kurtzman and the other creatives, the writers of Star Trek Discovery, have really done more with Section 31 in Star Trek Discovery. And as a result, Michelle Yeoh, she was very interested in what is being reported as wanting to do a Section 31 series. Now, we found out recently in a number of articles reporting this breaking news about Section 31 being in production at this point, that even before Discovery went on the air, Michelle Yeoh was actually the one that was instrumental in saying, I want to do this show. I want a spinoff for this character in Section 31. So there are still some questions that need to be answered in terms of how the heck are they going to do this, because there are other characters that are reportedly being tagged on with this project. So we have Shazad Latif, I believe is the actor's name, who plays Burnham's love interest to a certain extent in season 1 and part of season 2, who was also a Klingon, which is weird when you really think about it. Anyway, so he's still back 900 years in the past. Discovery and Michelle Yeoh's character are 900 years in the future. So there's got to be something that's got to explain how Michelle Yeoh is going to get back to the past to do the Section 31 show, or how this other character is going to get to the future. We're not too sure yet where and when the Section 31 show is going to be taking place in terms of the timeline. But by all accounts that have been developing, it sounds like it's going to be happening in the past. So it's going to be happening in the 23rd century, not in the 32nd century, where the Discovery crew is now. So there's still more to really, unveil and unpack about this. There are a number of articles that are covering this. A lot of it is some of the same information. Alex Kurtzman has said that Michelle Yeoh's enthusiasm has been infectious, and even saying, let's have a show that hopefully people will like, and we can talk about doing the spin-off, the Section 31 show, later on. Kurtzman also has said that, we don't want people to just watch one show and be like, well, I don't really need to watch that other Star Trek show because I've already watched Discovery or whatever. So according to Kurtzman, to him, Section 31 is sort of like the Black Ops CIA division of Star Trek, and it was established in Deep Space Nine, which we kind of talked about before. I'm kind of interested to see where they go with this. I hope they do it justice. The Section 31 episodes on Deep Space Nine were absolutely brilliant, and I enjoyed the heck out of them. And I don't want them to I don't want them just to go all over the place with Section 31. I think there's a lot that could be done. I want it to be done right, even for it being a more darker, version or darker area of Star Trek. Section 31 is actually based off of the Federation Charter. It's Section 31 of the Charter. So we will cover that more. We'll talk about the founding of the Federation and like some Federation history in a regular episode of These Are the Voyages. But it's not something that we're going to completely unpack in TRTV news. So we're going to keep our ear to the ground when it comes to that, and just see how it develops. Now, they're also saying that for any of you that are into Clint Eastwood movies, that the Section 31 show is probably going to have more of a feel like Unforgiven. So if you're into that kind of stuff, that might be right up your alley whenever the show airs. It could be like a 2021 air date is what it might be. Either late 2020 or early 21, just depending on getting scripts and the production and how things are going in general. We still have to see Picard. We still have to see Discovery and the short treks and how this stuff is going to kind of all come together and work with one another. So we're going to keep at it. We're going to keep at it. I know I've already said that, but this is just a breaking development that's just coming out. So there's not a lot of news on it right now. So there will be more to come as we really dig in and look at it and think about it and stuff like that. Now, we've talked about the fact that there is some Star Trek Discovery stuff that's kind of making the rounds to a certain extent. We still don't have a firm date of when Star Trek Discovery Season 3 is going to drop. Now, I've said it in the regular show, and I'll say it again. Jonathan Frakes has gone on record as saying that Season 3 is going to be more optimistic and hopeful, like other iterations of Trek before it. So that's kind of a good thing, is in terms of uh, what's coming up. Now, comicbook.com, which is also um, owned by CBS, actually, um, is has recently released an article saying that Star Trek Discovery was always going to be about women of color. And the article goes on to say that Star Trek Discovery is the first series in the Star Trek franchise to focus on a woman of color. Talking about Sneako Martin Green's Commander Burnham leading the series. Now, it might be the first series for a woman of color, but we got to also remember that other iterations of Star Trek had Captain Sisko with Deep Space Nine, black captain, and we had Captain Janeway, which was the first female captain. So we had our first black captain and our first female captain, and now Discovery is doing the whole first black female led series. She's not a captain; she's a commander. And then also having, Michelle Yeoh, like we were just talking about with Section 31, both as Captain / Empress Georgiou. The article talks about it that it's important to reflect on the culture on our service, and that's not just altruistic. Although it's good and an important thing, it's also good business. You really want to reach people in a way that feels specific in terms of characters and storytelling. And Kurtzman has said that having a woman of color in the lead role was one of the first thoughts about the new show, about doing Star Trek Discovery. And he was saying, I'm not interested in having another male captain. We made that very clear and a condition of our involvement, and Julie was immediately supportive of it. And one thing I remember very clearly was that we were still casting the morning that Donald Trump was elected. And somehow in the casting conversation, this question came up like, okay, do we have to reconsider this? And there's been a lot of thoughts and feelings about Discovery and about the characters in general. But I think it's good to do this sort of thing, to have more of this multicultural awareness type of thing. These different perspectives in general. I think that's part of what Trek does well. I'm interested to see how it continues to evolve as a show when it comes to the representation that they do. Last time we did talk about the Star Trek Picard Countdown comic. Like I said, that was the first issue. The issues are going to be coming out monthly. There's going to be a 3-issue series for Star Trek Picard Countdown. So we won't be getting the next comic until later in December. And then we'll get the third one just before Star Trek Picard drops. Now, I might have mentioned this in the regular show. If not, I'll mention it now. Once Star Trek Picard happens, we will be doing, episode by episode reaction type episodes to them. So whether that's going to be like a TRTV news or that's going to be more in line with the regular show, we're going to kind of figure that one out as we go. Anyways, there's still more to come in terms of Star Trek. We still have to hear more about Lower Decks and Star Trek Prodigy. There was one other bit that kind of comes to mind. More or less, he's like, yeah, let's wait. Let's see how things go before we really pull the trigger and make things happen. So she was actually the one advocating for her own role, for her own TV show, so to speak. And part of what Kurtzman was saying was, we want to see if people even care about watching Star Trek Discovery, let alone greenlighting a show that wouldn't have anything to stand on. And as it stands right now, Star Trek Discovery's got this mixed bag amongst longtime Trek fans. So we're going to really pay attention to the development of Section 31 as a TV show here on TRTV News, and we'll certainly talk about it here and there on the main show. But just know that there's this new Trek coming, and that there's really there's not a lot of clamoring for it. And of course, I'm just one voice, and there's a sea of others out there that are making a lot of noise. But just know that this show has been greenlit, that we're going to be getting, I think by this time we're at our 4th or 5th new Star Trek show. So this is pretty exciting in terms of the time to be a Trek fan. In that, we have Star Trek Discovery about to enter its 3rd season. We have Star Trek Picard about to enter its 1st season, and there's already been discussions of returning to wherever come March, April of 2020 to start filming season 2. We have Star Trek Lower Decks, which is going to be an animated series, and Star Trek Prodigy. So those are 4 already, and now we're talking Section 31, which could be the 5th one. So that's pretty dang cool. It's a fun time to be a Star Trek fan. So how about them apples, huh? Now let's talk Star Trek Discovery. There has been some movement in terms of some characters that might be making a return, and just a few other bits here and there regarding ideas about Star Trek Discovery and, like I said, returning characters. So there was an article that dropped recently where Alex Kurtzman, regardless of how you feel about him, reported that there was never, ever an intention of ever having another white captain in the center chair on this new show, Star Trek Discovery. That the show was always going to be about people of color, women of color, mainly. So that's why we have the lead of Michael Burnham, played by Sonequa Martin Green, which is fine. I mean, Star Trek has been a very progressive show in that it's pushing the envelope in terms of inclusivity and getting people to kind of like expand their thinking and understanding of things, which I think is perfectly fine. And Star Trek typically does a wonderful job of that. So there's that. That's worthy of consideration and discussion for the most part. So now the rest of this, when it comes to Star Trek Discovery, there was a recent little screen grab, or a snapshot, I should say, on a trailer that was spotted during production. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this plays out. Again, this is not spoiler free. But there is a character that we have believed to have been destroyed or something from Star Trek Discovery Season 2. And that was Lieutenant Arium. I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, but Arium is she's like a modified human. She's got some mechanical parts on her and stuff like that. She's not Borg, she's not android, she's just something else. And anyways, on a trailer, it had the character's name on it. So this kind of creates a little bit of speculation in terms of Star Trek Discovery Season 3 of whether or not this character is truly dead or destroyed, or if there's like going to be like a flashback scene or some kind of like holographic something or another with this character. So it'll be really interesting to see how this character comes back, and if they're going to develop the character anymore, through resurrection or backstory or whatever it might be. We got to see a little snippet of her before some kind of accident occurred when she was, I guess she was dating or she was married at some point. So I'm really looking forward to it, especially like when we got into those episodes which were more focused on her. I really enjoyed some of those stories, some of those moments. So again, we'll see what happens from there. Now, getting to the final bit of our show today is us talking about the late DC Fontana. It was announced just a few short days ago on December 2nd that DC Fontana boldly went into the undiscovered country, or the final frontier, whatever you want to call it, at the age of 80. So DC Fontana, otherwise known by her real name, which is Dorothy Catherine Fontana is a famed Star Trek writer, and she died after having a brief illness. And anyway, she's survived by her husband, who's an Oscar-winning visual effects cinematographer, Dennis Skotak. I might be saying his last name wrong, but he was her husband was actually on Aliens and Batman Returns for doing visual effects for those two films. But we're not here to talk about her husband. We're here to talk about her. Now, a couple things. I want to just read a couple different things, talk about a couple different things about her in terms of like maybe some things that you may or may not have known about her or those close to her. Just want to kind of go through that. And also just I'd like to go over the press release that was also released regarding the announcement that she's no longer with us, that she's passed away. So there's an episode of Deep Space Nine, a very beloved episode called Far Beyond the Stars, and there's a character that Major Kira, or the human form of Major Kira, is portraying. That is a direct inspiration and nod to DC Fontana, because there was some sexism from the executives back in the 60s whenever Dorothy Fontana was coming up in the business and whatnot. So Gene Roddenberry was the one that actually encouraged her to use her initials rather than her first name due to, like I said, sexism from executives. Now, apart from Star Trek, Fontana also wrote some TV shows like Logan's Run, Streets of San Francisco, and The $6 Million Man, according to at least her IMDb page. And since 1997, she's operated her own production company called Cardwell Productions. And from her IMDb page, it notes that during the 60s, she had been told again that there was this bias against female writers, which is what led to the use of the initials. Also, in terms of Star Trek, there was a lot of writing that happened, but she actually co-wrote the Star Trek: The Next Generation pilot called Encounter at Farpoint, and it's a lovely pilot. Especially if you're a Next Gen fan, I'm sure you enjoy the pilots. Got a warm spot in your heart. So there's that, and in fact, the writing that she did for that episode, she was nominated for a Hugo Award in terms of the best dramatic presentation category. So she got some major props for that one. She also was someone that started to really and truly dig into writing and start to develop an appreciation and maybe even hone her craft, if you want to call it that, back in the 5th grade. So she told the Spectrum in October of 2017 that she began writing in earnest while in the 5th grade, and she's quoted as saying, "I'd write stories out on yellow notepads and pass them around to my friends, so I always wanted to write and hoped to become a novelist." So Fontana said that she had graduated from Fairleigh Dickinson University and went to work as a secretary for the head of Screen Gems in Manhattan. And during that time with reading scripts, she was inspired to begin really writing herself. And she later said that she sold her first story, a Western-themed TV episode, The Tall Man, at the age of 21 in June 1960. So this was 6 years before we had Star Trek go to air. She's also appeared in some TV shows here and there in terms of like cameos. One recent one being back in 2011 in The Big Bang Theory with Brent Spiner. How about that, huh? So if you're into that, go check it out. It's the episode "The Russian Rocket Reaction," and like I said, it has Brent Spiner in it. And she's also gone on record as saying that she enjoys The Big Bang Theory as a TV show. Now, like I was saying, I did want to take the time to go over the press release. There's going to be a copy of this that's going to be in our group, These Are the Voyages group. So make sure that if you're not already connected with us, that you do. We have a lot of fun in the group, talking about all sorts of different things, just having a good old time. So if this next part is boring to you, just feel free to skip past it. Hopefully you don't, though. Hopefully this will be worthwhile for you. So it's listed as saying the trailblazing Star Trek writer DC Fontana has passed away. Okay, so Los Angeles, California. We are deeply saddened to report that Dorothy Catherine, DC Fontana, passed away peacefully last night at the age of 80 after brief illness. Most recently employed as a senior lecturer at the American Film Institute, Ms. Fontana devotedly taught and mentored many classes of aspiring screenwriters, producers, and directors by sharing a lifetime of expertise, craft, heart, and integrity. However, Ms. Fontana gained global notoriety for her writing and story editing on the 1960s television series Star Trek, as well as the 1970s animated series, which she also associate produced. Her myth-building work on classic Star Trek blazed a trail for women, not only in television, but also in science fiction. Her well-known screen credit kept the fact of her gender and secret from most fans until they saw her picture in Stephen Whitfield's The Making of Star Trek, one of the quote-unquote Bibles of classic Trekker fandom. Dorothy Fontana was responsible for creating Spock's childhood history, including the essential story Yesteryear, which, though produced for Star Trek the Animated Series, is as powerful as the best episodes of the classic series. She established the characters of and relationship between Spock's father and mother, Sarek, and Amanda, in classic Trek's Journey to Babel episode. It was Miss Fontana's development of the rare emotional travails of a half-human, half-Vulcan child and adult, full of emotions, yet prohibited from expressing them, that made Spock such a unique character in the history of film and television. Miss Fontana shared writing credit with Gene Roddenberry on Encounter at Farpoint, the feature-length premiere of Star Trek The Next Generation, which was nominated for a Hugo Award. She penned further episodes of Star Trek TNG and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and her last produced writing credit was an episode of the web-based series Star Trek New Voyages entitled To Serve All My Days, which starred classic Trek's Chekhov, Walter Koenig. Miss Fontana's writing credits also include episodes of Then Came Bronson, her script, 2% of Nothing, co-written with Denny Bart Petticlear, and was nominated for a WGA award. Ben Casey, The Wild Wild West, The Big Valley, Bonanza, The $6 Million Man, Land of the Lost, The Streets of San Francisco, Kung Fu, The Waltons, Dallas, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, Babylon 5, and the documentary Bob Burns' Hollywood Halloween, shared with Bob and Kathy Burns. Though best known for her television work, DC Fontana also wrote novels including Trek's Vulcan Glory and The Questor Tapes, based on a pilot by Roddenberry. She also wrote a Trek comic book and several video games primarily in the science fiction genre. For decades, Miss Fontana was an ardent and active member of the Writers Guild of America, West, having served on its board of directors for 2 terms. She twice won the prestigious Morgan Cox Award for Guild service, first in 1997, shared with members of the Property Planning Committee, and again by herself in 2002. Recorded interviews with her from the Writers Guild and the TV Academy, among others, are available online. Dorothy D.C. Fontana was born in New Jersey in 1939 and survived by her husband, Oscar-winning visual effects cinematographer Dennis Skotak. Please respect the family's privacy. Send memorial donations to the Humane Society, Best Friends Animal Society, or the American Film Institute. Now, I know that was lengthy read for you guys, a lengthy part of this news segment. But I wanted to make sure that you guys had an opportunity to hear it if you weren't able to read it, read the official press release. So you heard that there are donations that are being sent to the Humane Society, the Best Friends Animal Society, or the American Film Institute. If you feel so inclined and led to want to donate in memory of DC, I would highly encourage you to do that. And we'll always have a part of her with us as we experience Star Trek, regardless if we're watching the original series, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, anything. We know that she was central to the creation of Trek, or at least, the creative aspects of Trek. And anyways, we're so very grateful for her and the part that she played in the Star Trek mythos, the optimistic, hopeful, bright future that Gene Roddenberry's talked about. So I know we're kind of ending on a heavy note, but thank you for listening. And just know that we do have a new episode coming out tomorrow. So this is releasing on Friday. We'll have a new episode on Saturday, the 7th of December. Just a reminder, all new episodes are going to be dropping on the 7s. And you can listen on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and anywhere else that you might listen to podcasts. So thank you for listening to us. If you want to get in contact with us, make sure you open hailing frequencies. You can send us a note by entering in coordinates trtvpod@gmail.com. You can also send us a 3-minute limit voice-only communication by entering in coordinates 817-752-4757. Again, that's 817-752-4757. Just remember that your comments might be used on a future episode of These Are the Voyages. You can also send us long-range communications by entering in coordinates P.O. Box 2455, Azle, Texas. That's A-Z-L-E, Texas, 76020. Make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can always support the page by not only listening to the shows, but also telling your friends about it, leaving us a review on iTunes and the other services that you listen to. And finally, thank you so much. And please connect with us on Instagram and Twitter, and Facebook, all at TRTV Pod. The conversation continues in the group. We'd love to have you join us there, and tell your friends about it. If you enjoyed this, let us know. If there's something that you'd like to maybe have us tweak, let us know. We're still on our shakedown cruise, so thank you in advance. And as always, as we end this show, as we end the main show, and as we end this news segment, may you boldly go and make it so. Take care.